Hi there and welcome back. I know you're interested in learning all about hormones since you signed up for this course in hormonal health. So we're not going to waste any time here to officially kick things off. I'm going to lead you through a basic overview of structure and function of the hormonal system, also known as the endocrine system. And we will talk about its role in the body and the main functions that are carried out by this fascinating and complex part of the body. It is an important place to build your foundation because when we talk about hormonal health, we're talking about the chemicals and processes that occur within the endocrine system. Now I'm sure you've heard of the endocrine system, but how much do you actually know about it? Whether you're just starting out or you already have a wealth of information on the topic, there's much more to learn about how the endocrine system exactly operates and how it affects all the other systems in the body. There are many parts of the system that work together in an amazing coordinated way. Developing a working understanding of this intricate dance and the dancers who are starring the show will provide an important context for understanding hormonal health as it affects your health and well-being. So we're going to start here with a little anatomy lesson. Please print out the handout given with this lesson so you can follow along. Are you ready and set with your handout and a pen and paper to take additional notes? Alright, let's go. You can think of the endocrine system as a collection of endocrine glands that produce hormones that are used as chemical messengers throughout the body to help regulate vital processes including metabolism, growth, sleep, and reproduction. It's kind of the postal service. Each gland is like a post office and the hormones from these glands are like the mailman. They are delivering important messages from the post office to the homes that they are addressed to. Endocrine glands regulate each of the body's main functions by triggering a complex dance. The two lead partners in this dance are the hormones produced by each of the endocrine glands and specific receptor cells in the target organs. As their name would imply, these receptor cells receive the messages delivered by the hormones. They are super sensitive and respond to even the tiniest amounts of hormones. So as you can see, it is important that they are delivered to the right place. A good way of picturing the relationship between hormones and their receptor cells is to think of a lock and a key. Each specific hormone is like a key to its matching receptor cell. Just like there is only one key to unlock a door, there's only one specific hormone that can bind to a certain type of receptor cell. When a hormone binds to its receptor cell, it initiates a response from the cell. They perform the desired function in the body. Essentially, the hormone is tapping the receptor cell on the shoulder and saying, "Hey friend, it's time to get to work. Go do your job." As a whole, the endocrine system is composed of endocrine glands and a few key glandular organs. These include the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid glands, thymus gland, adrenal gland, pancreas, ovaries in women, and testes in men, and at last the pineal gland and the hypothalamus. Hormones secreted from the endocrine glands are special. So you might think, okay, why are they special? That is because unlike substances secreted by the other glands, they are released directly into the bloodstream of the body. Endocrine hormones are transmitted through the bloodstream to their specific destinations in the body through a process called diffusion. So going back to our postal service analogy, diffusion would be the mail truck and the bloodstream the road. So let's compare this to how other glands in the body work. We have sweat glands and salivary glands, for example. and they secrete the substances they produce through ducts, little tubes. And the substances that they produce can only be used in the vicinity of the particular gland. Endocrine glands, however, can transmit their hormones using diffusion to any part of the body. So pretty cool is that, alright? Before we move forward, let's recap what we've learned so far. The endocrine system is made up of glands that produce hormones which transmit messages to different parts of the body to carry out major functions of life. These hormones travel directly through the body by a process called diffusion to bind to a specific receptor cell. And they send a chemical message to do its job. Now that we're clear on what the endocrine system is as a whole, let's take a look at the specific roles of the 9 major endocrine glands. First we have the pituitary gland. This gland is only the size of a pea, but its power is mighty. The pituitary is often referred to as the master gland because it produces hormones that control other parts, other glands, other systems in the body, like the thyroid gland, all the way down to the adrenal glands, to the ovaries and testes. So that is pretty impressive for a little guy. The pituitary gland is located at the base of the brain under the hypothalamus. These guys are neighbors because they work very closely together. The pituitary has 2 parts, the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe. The anterior lobe produces and releases hormones. The posterior lobe releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus into the bloodstream. The anterior lobe is like a factory where hormones are produced, and the posterior lobe is like a delivery truck that sends them out to where they need to go. Like a good neighbor, the hypothalamus lets the pituitary know when it's time to get to work. In case you're wondering, the hypothalamus is the part of the brain that acts as a link between the nervous system and the hormonal system. It signals the pituitary gland to either hit the gas or the brakes on hormone production. In this hormonal symphony, the hypothalamus is the conductor, the hormones are the music notes, and the orchestra is the pituitary playing the music as instructed by the conductor. The pituitary gland produces 8 different hormones. Here's a quick run through of each. We have adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which stimulates the adrenal glands to produce their hormones. We have follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, which ensures that the ovaries and the testes are functioning properly. We have luteinizing hormone, LH, which works together with FSH to help ensure the hormonal functioning of the ovaries and the testes. We have growth hormone, which is essential during the early years of development and also to maintain healthy body composition. Growth hormone aids in bone growth and development and in building of muscle mass and fat distribution as well. Prolactin, which is best known for stimulating breast milk production, but it also plays an essential role during pregnancy and the development of the fetus. Prolactin also supports metabolism and the immune system. Thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, which stimulates the thyroid gland to produce its hormones. Antidiuretic hormone, which prompts the kidneys to increase water reabsorption from the urine back into the blood. And oxytocin, which is involved in a variety of processes, including stimulated production of breast milk in lactating moms, and it's also known as the cuddle hormone because it promotes bonding. You got all that? It's a lot of information, and don't worry about memorizing it all at once because we're just introducing all of these parts and concepts to you today to get your feet wet. As you'll learn more about the glands and the hormones over the course of time, as we progress through this course, it's all going to start to sink in and make sense. So let's move on to the next one, the hypothalamus. As I mentioned before, the hypothalamus is a close friend and neighbor to the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus takes in information from the nervous system and delivers messages to the endocrine system. So it makes a bridge. Think of it as a liaison between these two systems. How does it do this? Great question. The hypothalamus receives cues about what is going on from the nervous system, and as a response it secretes neurohormones, which are special substances that signal the pituitary gland to secrete specific types and amounts of hormones for use in the body. This dance between the nervous system, the hypothalamus, and the pituitary is critical because it is responsible for maintaining homeostasis in the body. And homeostasis is the body's internal balance. Homeostasis affects nearly every system in the body, including circadian rhythm, body temperature, appetite, heart rate, blood pressure, and the balance of fluid and electrolytes in the body. So many of these hormones that are created by the hypothalamus exist just to participate in this spectacular dance. Their job is to signal the pituitary to release or inhibit a particular hormone. Now these hormones are very long names: thyroid tropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, growth hormone inhibiting hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, and corticotropin releasing hormone. The hypothalamus also secretes oxytocin, dopamine, antidiuretic hormone, commonly known as vasopressin. You're likely familiar with the next gland we'll be covering, which is the thyroid gland. The thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland located in the front of the neck. It is essential to regulate the body's metabolism. For the process, as using food as energy, every cell in the body depends on the hormones your thyroid produces for metabolism regulation. It works like this. The pituitary gland senses when thyroid hormones dip too low. When this happens, it produces thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, in response. And TSH does exactly what the name suggests. It stimulates the thyroid to produce more of these essential hormones. In order to do its job, the thyroid needs iodine, which comes from your diet. This is why it is really important to consume enough of this nutrient in your diet. Thyroid cells absorb the iodine, and combined with an amino acid called tyrosine, they make thyroxine, which is better known as T4. They also produce triiodothyroidine, also known as T3. Once produced, these hormones are released into the bloodstream and transported throughout the body, where they control every aspect of cell metabolism. So this is pretty amazing. Next up is the parathyroid. Judging by name and location, you think that parathyroid is related to thyroid, but there's actually no related function. The purpose of the parathyroid is to control blood calcium levels, keeping them in a very specific range. There are actually 4 of these tiny vascular glands, and their job is to constantly filter the blood. If they detect that blood calcium levels are too high or too low, they will react by producing more or less parathyroid hormone, known as PTH for short. Parathyroid hormone has an influence on your bones and causes them to release calcium into your bloodstream if levels get too low. Our bodies need the right balance of blood calcium levels to maintain a healthy pH and to maintain bone health and density. Blood calcium levels also regulate muscle contraction and contribute to the conduction of electrical currents along the nerves. So that is important stuff to do, right? And calcium levels, when they get too high or too low, it can have a detrimental effect on energy, sleep, and cognitive function. Our next gland is the thymus gland. This gland is actually part of the immune system, but it's worth including in our discussion here. The thymus gland is located between the sternum and between the lungs. It produces a hormone called thymosin, which stimulates the development and production of very important disease-fighting white blood cells known as T lymphocytes or simply T cells. These T cells help protect the body from diseases and infections. So here's an interesting fact that the thymus gland is largest when we're children, and it's only active until puberty. Once puberty ends, it begins to shrink and then turns into fat. The adrenal glands. These glands are located right above the kidneys. They are best known for regulating the body's response to stress. The adrenal glands are part of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, better known as the HPA axis. These three endocrine glands form a complex feedback loop to regulate hormone production and use. The adrenal glands actually do much more than just battle stress. They also release hormones that are essential to life, and they produce cortisol, which is considered one of the main stress hormones. They produce aldosterone, which helps regulate the blood pressure and maintain body pH and electrolyte levels. They also produce small amounts of male and female sex hormones, and they also produce norepinephrine and epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and they act as neurotransmitters and hormones in the body. These are the chemicals that contribute to the stress response by increasing heart rate and blood pressure so that the body can pump more blood efficiently in case of stress, and they also increase respiration for better delivery of oxygen to your cells and aid in the removal of carbon dioxide from the body. These hormones also free up some stored glucose so the body can use it for energy. Basically, these two chemicals give the body everything it needs to run or fight in case of stress. Next up is the pancreas, a glandular organ that serves as a couple of different functions. The pancreas is better known for its role in digestion, excreting and digestive enzymes to break down the nutrients in your food. But did you know that the pancreas also functions as a hormone-producing endocrine gland? It produces hormones insulin and glucagon, which help control blood sugar levels throughout the day. Glucagon raises glucose by stimulating the liver to turn glycogen, which is stored glucose, into glucose molecules to be released in the bloodstream. Glucagon can also convert fat cells into glucose for the body to use as energy. On the flip side, insulin is released to help lower blood sugar levels. It does this by converting glucose into its stored form glycogen, which is stored in the liver, muscles, and fat tissue. Next, we have the gonads. These are the ovaries in women and the testes in men, both active endocrine glands secreting important sex hormones. The ovaries are responsible for producing the two main sex hormones in women, named estrogen and progesterone, and the testes produce androgens or male hormones, namely testosterone. In both men and women, the gonads produce hormones in response to messages from the pituitary gland. We will cover male and female sex hormones in depth later on in this course. And lastly, we have the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a small pine cone shaped gland located in the brain, and its functions include converting signals from the nervous system into hormones and influencing sexual development. But its main function is the production of melatonin. The the body's main sleep hormone. Melatonin is regulated by a signal that originates from the retina in the eye. The retina is sensitive to light and darkness. When the pineal gland receives a signal that it is nighttime, it uses serotonin to create melatonin. Higher levels of melatonin promote sleep, while lower levels during the day help us to stay awake. People who have trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep at night may not be producing enough melatonin in the evening, or they don't have enough serotonin for the conversion into melatonin. So, and there you have a broad overview of the immensely complex but fascinating endocrine system. To recap, the endocrine system is the network of glands that produce hormones that regulate all bodily functions. Specifically, the endocrine system is made up of the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal gland, pancreas, ovaries or testes, pineal gland, and hypothalamus. Each of these create different hormones that serve specific functions in the body. They all work together in a perfectly coordinated fashion to keep our bodies functioning properly. I hope this overview was helpful in forming a basic understanding of the endocrine system. Now, I know this is a lot of information, but there's no need to feel overwhelmed. Working with hormonal health involves learning about all the different hormones themselves and the glands and structures that produce them. There's no way to cut this short. It is a lot of information, but you're not expected to memorize it all at once. And it doesn't all have to click for you at once. So if you feel like you can't remember everything we just covered, then don't sweat it. Instead, head over to the question and answer section to talk about what you just learned, and was there something that stood out to you in this lecture, some questions, is there a particular gland or hormone that you want to learn more about. I love to hear your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.